Hello everyone, welcome back to Cross/Game. It's CV here with another video, and this time, as the title says, I'm talking about Rocksteady and kind of like the rise and fall, shall I say, of the company or the studio. I think it's safe to say that Rocksteady has built a following. We trust them as a studio because of what they did before. So they don't have a great or a big repertoire of video games. It's not like the list is like endless, like some other studios who've been around for a long time. They're recently a reasonably kind of new studio from the early-ish 2000s, so they're obviously established in the UK, and they kind of had the opportunity to do a Batman game, and they had made one game prior, and it was okay. It was an FPS. It was pretty gritty. It had some positive reviews, I'd say, but the company Rocksteady was kind of like a part of WB Games at the time, so a subsidiary. And ultimately they made a decent game, so they decided, look, let's have a crack at it, and they made a sort of demonstration for WB of what a Batman game could look like under their sort of vision, and they got the part right. So that's great. If you've never played Batman Arkham Asylum, Arkham City, or Arkham Knight, you're doing yourself a disservice. They are the best superhero games I've ever played. And okay, so Batman has no superpowers. I guess that's his thing. He's got lots of money. He's got so many gadgets, and they've done a great job at kind of portraying this character, both physically and mentally, like you are playing as Batman, right? In my opinion, the Batman trilogy is much better than Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2. Spider-Man, don't get me wrong, they're great games. And in their own right, no disservice to Insomniac for what they did there, but Rocksteady just nailed this thing, this sense of what it would be to be the Batman. So obviously through Arkham Asylum, Arkham City, and Arkham Knight, you played this whole overarching narrative through, I would say, 3 nights, but I'm sure there's like a lot more going on there. But where it just tests Bruce Wayne and his motivations for being Batman, his connections to every single villain he comes across, most specifically the Joker, how he ends up being unmasked over time, and his sacrifices, the sacrifice he ends up making to save Gotham City, and that's how you tell a story in a video game. You get to physically interact all the way through all 3 games what it's like to be the Batman, and Rocksteady, not overnight but over years, created and cultivated this trust, this like following of fans and admirers who appreciated the work that they did and the games that they put out, and I'm one of them, obviously. So suffice to say that when Arkham Knight came out in 2015 and they went just dead silent, we were all waiting to see what they were working on, and nothing was happening. No news was coming out. There was some rumours of a Superman game, which we were like, okay, Superman, if I trust anyone to make a game about Superman, it would be Rocksteady, right? Considering their track record, each Batman is better than the next. Arguably, some people prefer Arkham Asylum, some people prefer Arkham City, but it's just the way it is. They're great games, every single one of them, and I would strongly advise any gamer or anyone that enjoys the medium to go and play those games. So what happens next? We hear nothing. There's just little rumours here or there, and then at some point between 2017 and 2020, there's a storm brewing within the company, and it's not a good thing. So The Guardian does a publication on August of 2020 that there's sexual harassment complaints going on within the company. There's a lot of different things that are being brought out into the light around the conduct of certain people inside the company, the studio, and it's not good. It's not good for any company when that happens, but I agree. it has to bring it. Yeah, they have to shine a light to these things for them to stop happening, I guess. But in saying that, it doesn't necessarily mean that you change the overall culture within the studio. You don't take away. So if you take away the bad apples, you get them out. You do what you need to do, and then you replace whatever you lost with equal talented people. That's how I think the situation should have been handled. I don't have, by the way, this is just my opinion of things that I've read, so I don't have specific fact around what happened during that time. Rocksteady just said, "Yep, we hear you. We've dealt with it. The complaint was back in 2018, and we've dealt with it." Okay, so that was that. Didn't hear anything until around the same month in August of 2020, after that article came out, or just before. I can't tell you which one came first. Rocksteady announces Suicide Squad kills the Justice League, and it's just a CG or FMV, whatever you call it, CG movie. So of the characters in game, and it looks pretty fun, right? It looks a little bit quirky. It's a bit on the edgy, and I think everyone kind of took it because it's different. If anything, I think I personally will say that when I saw it for the first time, I was excited. This looks cool. Obviously, the game says kill the Justice League, but everyone has a mixed interpretation of what that could be like. If you're going to just literally take it at face value, then you're going to kill the Justice League. And whilst that in itself could have been, I think, could have been a possibility, I think that it could have been handled differently. Again, no one knows what's going on at Rocksteady within the company. No one understands what's changing and what isn't changing. So our faith is still in these guys who made the Batman trilogy. We left it as that. And then we hear that the creators or the founders of Rocksteady, named Sefton Hill and Jamie Walker. So Sefton Hill's credited director for the trilogy, heavily influenced, a big heavy influence behind the trilogy and how it was presented, the story, and etc. They decide that in 2022 they're leaving, and I think this kind of like you start connecting the dots slowly. So why would the founders of the company of the makers of some of the three of the best superhero video games, who made lots of money for WB, for Warner Brothers, mind you, decide to leave? Now, again, there is no specific data out there around it. They just decided to leave and created a brand new studio elsewhere. That tells me something. It tells me that there was a culture change. It was no longer the company they founded. Mind you, after Arkham Asylum, with the success of Arkham Asylum, WB completely took over majority or fully control of Rocksteady. So they were a subsidiary to start with, and then they completely just swallowed them up. So generally when that happens, that means that Warner Brothers will have a lot of power, if not all the power, to say what happens with the brand Batman going forward. That's I think how it works in business. It will always ever be a conflict between the vision, the art, and the money. It will always be that, because one cannot exist without the other. You have to have the money to live in order to create these to pay people to create these amazing games, because it's not just one man, there's hundreds of people. And so the money on the other side, WB, will, if they're paying, they're going to go, well, we'll have some say on what we think, which doesn't make any sense, never made sense to me, what we think the game should have or shouldn't have. Now, don't get me wrong, there are some visionaries out there, some artists, some game directors and writers who do, take the piss. I don't know, off the top of my head, you'll have people like, and when I say take the piss, they just take a very long time, right, to make a video game. And that costs money. Year on year, you're paying these people to work on this game. So I don't think that was the case here. I personally think that after WB acquired a majority share or fully swallowed Rocksteady, there was now a conflict within the core of that studio. I think it was one where all of a sudden these two guys who founded the studio didn't want to really be a part of, because ultimately they no longer were free to bring their ideas to life. They had to be vetted. Their ideas, their visions would have to be vetted by someone higher than them. And I appreciate that if they were once given the freedom and to create a game, all of a sudden for that freedom to be taken away, it's not gonna sit well with anyone. I don't think it would. If I'm used to something, if I'm used to being free to do my job, and all of a sudden I'm micromanaged, it's not going to come across very well. But ultimately, there is the other side of the coin. After the sexual harassment scandal, it's only fair. Well, I say it's only fair that some changes needed to happen. But like I said earlier, I don't think it needs to be core changes. You don't change what makes the team great. You know, it's going to be a shock to many people to find out that X staff member or X amount of staff members were behaving in a very derogatory way towards women or men or transgenders, community, whatever. Like, it's not good. It shouldn't happen in a work environment, in an office environment. It just shouldn't happen. It's very simple. This is obviously all around the same time as the Me Too movement, and their voice was found, and I'm happy for that. I'm happy that if something bad or something wrong happens to you, and you're being threatened in some way, that if you think, you know, if you open your mouth or you say, guys, this has happened to me, that you're all of a sudden going to lose your job. Your success or your talent as an individual in a company shouldn't be measured by whether you can keep your mouth shut when something bad happens to you. Okay, I understand the fear, but don't ever be scared to speak up. Okay, and that's what's happened. Okay, they spoke up. I assume Rocksteady took, or WB took, the necessary steps. They purged the bad apples, but I have this strange feeling that they went a step further, and they started working their way from top to bottom on staff in that studio. So I would argue that they probably started looking into people's values, their alignments. Okay, what type of, I don't know. I would suggest that it takes one. You put one person, one diversity hire at the top, and they will start shaping the company from top to bottom. Right. I agree that behaviour again shouldn't happen, but it doesn't mean you change the overall culture, the overall essence of the studio, because it's not going to be the same studio after that. It's not going to be the same Rocksteady that created Batman, Arkham Asylum, City and Night. And I think that's where I'm coming from with this video. The rise was up to Arkham Knight. The fall was after 2020, was literally that sexual harassment case, which I think changed everything. The sale, you know, WB taking over Rocksteady, I think clearly didn't help. But it comes to 2022, and Sefton and Jamie leave the company. So I started looking online for letters or any sort of information that shows what they said when they exited. And I didn't do a thorough, like an amazing search, but I would expect to see something on my first 5 to 10 results returned, and one was a letter or a sort of email from the president or CEO of WB at the time, and he's like saying how they'll be missed, and then he lets them have their words below within that letter as they're leaving. Now, it's from Sefton and Jamie, right? Or Jamie and Sefton. It's not like individually they wrote something and put it out there for the fans, right? They literally just went, it's from Sefton and Jamie. And the words are all mixed in. You don't know who's saying what. They just talk about as a we, like they're one person. Like they've always been one person and they both think exactly alike. I think that WB should have allowed them to express themselves as they walked out of Rocksteady. But clearly what's happened is something was formulated. That's what I see, because it feels like very heavily redacted. It feels like very PR influenced. Because if you've made all this money, and then you go so many years you're not releasing a game. Okay, we know that the Suicide Squad is in the works, and us as fans are holding hope for it. But the game it's taking a long time, right? We're not hearing much. And then your main founders, the people that you trust the most in that company, and I say we, the fans, would trust the most to make a good job, to make a good game, all of a sudden drop ship, then you're going to start asking questions, right? And I think that's what's happened. This redacted letter, it's just them bigging up Rocksteady, we're going away, keep up the momentum, whatever. Like, I'm not even going to go into it because it doesn't feel like it would be something that Jamie or Sefton would say. Not that I know what they would say, but ultimately it doesn't feel like a proper exit letter. It just feels like a sort of managing damages, like the fallout of them leaving. They're just saying, don't worry, the company's still good, look forward to the game, we're not going to be there, but it's fine. So I think my take on that is, I think Sefton and Jamie went, F this. This is not the same business. We're not able to work in this condition. We've proven ourselves that we're good at making video games that sell, and making quality and adding value, and WB ain't giving us the room to do so anymore. So F this, we're leaving, and we're gonna start a new company because we have the credibility to do so, and we're gonna vet everyone that walks through the door. That's what I think happened, and they just went. Now, if you look up the Suicide Squad game, it's just recently been released. Sefton is credited as one of the directors. I'm not even going to bother mentioning the other name, but he's credited as one of the directors. But he hasn't been there for 2 years between the game kind of coming out and him leaving and the game coming out. Dare I say, I can see it. Like, I can see if you've been used to making a type of game, and then your boss goes, well, actually, we want to get into this type of game because we want to make more money. You've established something now, and now we want you to make a game that allows players to spend money after the game's been released. And so we want a piece of that pie. That's what WB essentially, I think, said to Sefton and Jamie. And so they went into the live service games realm, which is, in my opinion, a big gamble for any publisher, any publisher and any studio to get into. Especially when it's not their forte, it's not something that they did or used to do. I'm not saying they couldn't do a good job, but the proof is in the pudding, right? But ultimately, I think their heart wasn't in it. That's how I see it. I think them exiting shows exactly that. Their heart was never in it. We'll get into the Suicide Squad in a minute, but it's a big gamble. Live service games, they do make money when they're good, okay? You don't just go, let's make a live service game. Also, at the same time, trying to make a sort of single player campaign. And at the same time, it's just too much. Creating a good story, like, you're trying to involve too much. You're trying to do too much, and that's not how it works. Okay, they can throw as much money as you want at something sometimes, but it doesn't. It can't polish a turd. And this is kind of what happened. The guys left. Sefton and Jamie obviously left, and WB were left with this game that they needed to release ASAP. Why? Because it's been nearly 9 years in the making between Arkham City and the Suicide Squad. 9 years of paying wages, of keeping doors open, of 2017 apparently this game was in pre-production, entered in production, and it was released in 2024. That's still a very long time. So clearly there's been a lot of turmoil within that studio, and that's my opinion. Okay, even some of the biggest, longest games that I've ever seen don't take that long to make. I know that CD Projekt Red is they take ages to release a new IP. I can't remember the development for Cyberpunk, but I believe it was nearly something like 10 years between the first initial reveal and all the way till the game coming out. But and it was a buggy mess, right? CD Projekt Red aren't famous for making FPS games, but they made an FPS game /RPG, and it worked. Okay, it was a buggy mess. They fixed it. It's always, I think that's just the way it works. It's annoying because I'm spending money for something that's not finished, but we give them the benefit of the doubt because they always turn it around. They always come back and go, you know what, this is an opportunity for us to fix the game, put things right for you. This is a game we really wanted to publish at the time, to issue at the time, and here it is. So anyway, I digress. These guys then were left with the Suicide Squad. So we come to 2024 January, and the Suicide Squad is released to the masses, and it's bad. So early previews before the game was released already showed that it wasn't fun to play. IGN, I think, is kind of like the biggest hot topic at the moment, because they obviously did their preview and they said they didn't like it. So I think ultimately I rate what IGN did. For once in their life, they spoke the truth. I don't know how or why, but they decided, look, because sometimes they try, and everyone has a big thing of how the ratings work and how IGN kind of judges games and so on and so forth. But they hit the nail on the head. Clearly, if a game is bad, again, you can't polish it at. So I think it was Dustin Liguri put his thoughts down. He issued it out there. Clearly, it was vetted before it went out to the masses, and it's just a bad game. So they didn't give them a review code, right? That's a bad sign. When a company or a publisher or a studio doesn't give a review code to a game journalism as big as IGN, then it's a telltale sign that something's really bad, right? Something's just very wrong. So I think that already set the stage for the reception for Suicide Squad. It comes out. I haven't played it. I'm just going based on what I've seen online. It's just not a game for me. I've played live service games before in the past where you pay a monthly subscription, because that's what it doesn't mean that it's just looter shooters, but it's just any time you have to pay extra to get additional stuff inside the game, or even just access to it. So I've played MMOs, which is considered a live service game, and I gladly paid for it because I was getting the value from that game. And Suicide Squad gives no value, right? It just you could tell people were just getting deflated. You could see the numbers at launch all the way, mediocre already, and they just dropped. And it's funny because it's been obviously looked at that Arkham City numbers all of a sudden just came up and up and up, with people going, well, actually this is better. So it's a completely two separate, completely different games. But if you're going to try and make some sort of Fortnite game off the base of the characters of the Batman universe, it could work. It could have worked. But then there's other elements in there. So the gameplay, from a gameplay perspective, it doesn't add value. So if you straight away, I think that's already the first hurdle is broken. You've just fallen right there, because if your gameplay isn't up to scratch, if people don't see the point in playing, they just feel that it's repetitive and annoying, and there's just no substance to it. That's it. You're done. You're not gonna come out of the gates running. Okay. And then there was a story element. So they tried to make this whole single player storyline about the Suicide Squad killing the Justice League. Clues in the title. What did they do? They killed the Justice League. One by one, they drop the Flash, the Green Lantern, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, but not. And they do this very unceremoniously. So there's no, oh wow, we just killed Superman. It's just a bullet sponge, right? The whole game is a bullet sponge. Each boss battle encounter should be like glorious and memorable. Just a bullet sponge. Then they just fall to the floor and they're dead. And that's it, unceremoniously. If anything, what ends up happening is the writers behind this game decide to disrespect these heroes. Now, they're not real. We all know superheroes don't exist, but they are real to every man, woman and child who grew up with these characters, right? Who respect the character of Batman, the character of Superman. They are, to them, they are part of their sort of growing up, their nostalgia. It's ingrained in them. The same way as Final Fantasy VII is my nostalgia. I can literally connect to my younger self just by thinking about that game. To a lot of people, that's what these heroes represent. WB allowed the studio, Rocksteady, who's no longer Rocksteady, to desecrate their brand. These characters, that vastly talented people sat and created and then were beloved by many fans over the generations and years that these comics have been out, these stories have existed, and they just desecrated them. They didn't. There was no. Batman has died many a time. Superman has died many a times. In the comics, they die all the time, but it's done properly. It's just there's a story behind it that makes sense, right? On this occasion, you just get a bunch of bad people, villains, who get together to kill the Justice League, and the only way WB clearly could have allowed that to happen is if they were being mind controlled. So it's not their fault that they do bad things. They were being mind controlled by Brainiac. What can I say? Look, it's not. It wasn't done right. I think there was a right way to do it, and there was a wrong way to do it, and this was the wrong way. Okay, there was no time given. It feels like just a botched job. There was no time given to each of these interactions. Each of these superheroes have their own universe and their own right. So to have just the Justice League just bullet sponge them and just that's it. They just fall to the floor and die. Then on top of that, you go and disrespect them, as what I've seen. Again, I know this has been mentioned probably in other videos, but Captain Boomerang goes and pisses all over the Flash's corpse. Come on. Was there a need? Was there a need to do that? Right? There's no send off there. He dies, let's piss all over him. That's saying something. That's saying a message. That's telling a message. It's you're kind of saying we have no respect for these people, and that's how we're telling the story. They're bad guys, and so there's no way I'm gonna like these bad guys, and definitely I'm not gonna like playing as them because they have no respect for anything. They're just bad guys. I guess that's exactly what they were. You're definitely not shining a good light on them. There's obviously the Green Lantern is minor. He just ends up in his underwear. But this also they didn't clearly read the comics because their King Shark can just put on the ring and he's a Green Lantern now, which is silly. Never happened. Would never happen. Superman again unceremoniously just gets shot down. He ends up killing Diana, Wonder Woman. So she doesn't die by the hands of the Suicide Squad because she's a woman. Okay, only men die by the hands of the Suicide Squad. A woman is the hero, if anything, of this story, and I'm not talking about Harley Quinn. It's Diana, and she dies a glorious death. A tear is shed for Diana, but not anyone else. And so yeah, Superman just falls to the floor, dies. With the commentary of the Suicide Squad. Yeah, we just killed the Justice League because they were bad people. You had to add it in there. And lastly but not least, I think the one that shook the internet was when they decided to kill Batman. Now, it's just the way it was done. Now, I'm not going to say that there wasn't a build up to Harley Quinn shooting Batman in the head. There was a build up. She goes into a whole monologue, as opposed to the rest of them. There's a whole cutscene for it. Again, could have been done better. What Harley Quinn says, the words she utters when she's about to shoot him, again, there's a lot of subliminal messaging going on in there. The game clearly has very woke influence behind it, and clearly I think it's trying to say that you can be bad and the Suicide Squad can do whatever they want. They're forgiven for doing so. But Batman, who spent his whole adult life fighting crime and keeping Gotham safe, is the bad guy now. Even though he's being mind controlled. Oh. It's like she says, even when you're mind controlled, you're still too good. And that's the truth. Is Batman is ultimately good. And even after being mind controlled, he's still his insults towards the guys are still very much, oh well, you're this, you're that, you're misguided, da 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 da. And then she goes, you got to end on your best joke, and she shoots him in the head. I think this hit hard because this is one of the last performances of Kevin Conroy, and again, there was not a lot of respect given to that fact. Of course, Kevin Conroy was still alive, and maybe there was no one knew he was about to die, and even if someone did know, Would it have changed anything towards the game? Probably not. But my point is I think they could have. This is the character. So Kevin Conroy has been Batman since the late 80s, right? From memory, he is Batman. His voice. Anytime you hear Batman, you hear Kevin Conroy. In video games and cartoons and some animated movies, and so they didn't do it justice. They didn't. They just killed him off again, unceremoniously, and then they just move on to the next. This is canon, by the way. This game is connected to the original Arkham trilogy, and I think this is why people are really annoyed by it, because in the end of the day, they've missed this massive opportunity to grab Batman and everything that came before Suicide Squad and make him this just do it properly. I can't tell you now. I don't have a think tank where I could imagine all scenarios and say, well, it's not what I get paid for. But as a consumer, if I was playing this game, I would feel the same way. Just by not even playing it, but by watching it online, I felt this is bad. This is bad. It's not a good way, let alone the rest of the Justice League. But what they did with Batman, as this game is apparently canon to his story in the Arkham games, Rocksteady, or this Rocksteady that we have today, did a very bad job at it. So I applaud them for, how the game looks. Apparently it does look good. It's not apparently, it does look good. There's a lot of money that's gone into this game, clearly, but their heart wasn't in the right place. All right, their heart. You can tell that by just reading the character bios, but from the Justice League, you can tell the fingerprints of all these woke political ideologues. It's all over it. Sweet baby ink. Enough said. But even if that was in there, even if the wokeness was in the game, which isn't a selling point in any way, the game should have still been good. You've got the biggest superheroes and some of the biggest villains. This game should have still been amazing, and it was a big flop. And it's a sign to show that clearly you don't respect the source material. You don't respect your fans. You don't respect the customers who would be paying. You're making these games. It's not for you. Okay, and getting Sweet Baby Inc. involved isn't a plus in any way. Okay, you're making games for us. But you didn't only just disrespect the source material, the superheroes. You disrespected the fans. You disrespected the customer. Okay, we're not haters. We're lovers, if anything. We loved these characters. We love games based on these characters. We want to play more games based on these characters. And you just decide, well, we're going to make a game. We don't care what you want. We're just going to make a game that we think you should want to play, that you should want to play. And if you don't, you're an XYZ, racist, bigot, whatever. Frustrating. It's so frustrating. It's such a big missed opportunity. And I can see it happening now. It's not the first time that it's happened. When a game flops this hard, one of the two happens, or both. People get laid off, which is sad. Again, we already had 2024 has already just started, and there's been so many people in the video game industry that were laid off already. Which I assume is going to happen here. And the worst case scenario is WB just writes off Rocksteady altogether and closes that studio down, because they've spent nearly 10 bloody years without making money, without making a good game. Maybe, I don't know, I don't know of any other, I don't think there's any other game between 2015 and 2024, but if there is, let me know in the comments. But they've just wasted all this time and brought the biggest flop in history when it comes to it's just big. It is a big flop as far as money is concerned, because that's how we judge things, whether they're successful or not, is how much money it made. And so far they expected it to come running out of the gates, but they're learning a very big lesson. WB will be fine, but it's the people at Rocksteady, the people that were there when that are still there when the Arkham games were made and were part of that, watching their beloved studio crumble to the ground. I feel for them, because they are putting their life into it. The game looks amazing, so from looks wise, those people did a great job. The animation, the facial animations, everything, like it's pretty, it's beautiful. but it got let down by some of the higher ups, so the people that make decisions around what they think games should be like. And stop thinking about what you think a game should be like, and start making games that are fun, that add value, that you know, live service games specifically demand that people want to play them, and that they're having so much fun that they'll spend more money. All right, you failed on all of that, all of it. So I feel for Rocksteady. I feel for the team behind it. Not everyone, because I know there's people in there that shouldn't even be there to begin with. And again, I'll think that, you know, I'll connect that all the way back to that sexual harassment scandal and the change in culture within the company back then. I think that that Rocksteady pretty much died when Sefton and Jamie left in 2022. They just saw a sinking ship. They saw the Titanic sinking and just went, yeah, F this, we're going. So, guys, look, let me know what you think in the comments below. This is my take on the rise and fall of Rocksteady, and my, like, very bare bones opinion on the game. I haven't played it, I just watched it. I can give an opinion. I know, oh, you've not even played a game. I don't need to play it. There's too many people out there that have spent their hard-earned money on it at launch, and probably have regretted. They'll never see that money again. Okay, so they've told me the game is rubbish. I don't need to give them money, even when the game, like, the comment is, oh, great game, buy it when it's £10. No, I'm not even going to buy it then. I'm not giving any money to support that game. I want games like that, bad games, deserve to be signalled as such. They need to be told that it's a bad game, don't bother, spend your money elsewhere. So, guys, that's it for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Sorry it's gone on for a little while, but I guess if you're going through history up to explain why Suicide Squad is as bad as it really is, it takes a little bit of time to get to that. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like, share and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.